caught in the crossfire.
Hey everybody, Hydra Carry here, back for another VOD review, and I have with me Rolwyn. Introduce yourself, Rolwyn.
Hello, I'm Rolwyn. I am a Latin American semi-pro team coach.
Alright, cool. And we've done this introduction before, so those of you who have watched a couple of these, I apologize, but maybe there are some new viewers. So, thought we'd do it again. So now, we are here, and we are looking to do a VOD review of the NA LCS Finals. Now, we have already done the LCK, a game from the LCK Finals, a game from the EU LEC semifinals, and a game from the LEC finals. And now we're going to do Game 5 of the NA finals as well.
Right, and to be honest, it was really hard for us to pick a NALCS finals game to review, but obviously Game 5 is just on another level, right? And this is exciting. We did mention before the video, before recording, that this is the most standard composition that we have reviewed so far.
Yeah, there are some strange games in the other regions, and I respect that. One thing I would say is, yes, it's hard to pick a game here. One thing to keep in mind is that Rolwyn has seen, or at least knows all about, a lot of the games we've reviewed already, whereas I've tried to keep myself as blind as possible. I know the results because it was impossible to keep myself that closed off, but I have avoided watching any clips or knowing anything about the specifics of the games, just to keep a little bit of variety between the two of us.
Yeah. All right. So, shall we start with team composition?
Yeah, let's talk through it.
All right. On the other videos, I started off with just lane matchups. So I guess this is a nice opportunity to do that again.
Yeah, of course.
Let's start with the top lane matchup. Now, the resurgence, and I say resurgence, or the appearance of top lane Akali seems actually interesting to me in this game, because having an assassin in the top lane is just a gamble. It's a toss. It's a toss on whether that assassin can get ahead and steamroll on the later stages of the game, or just become an ineffective assassin.
Well, especially when against someone as kind of safe as Vlad.
Yeah, safe and impactful in the mid to late game fights. Just and just Vladimir scaling as a whole is a scary thing on its own. So for the top lane matchup, I really just want to look at how the lane interacts in terms of the junglers, in terms of push priority, in terms of there's no resource to think of other than obviously health for Vladimir. If Vladimir does spam some Vs in the early game.
And Akali is pretty, I mean, her Q is pretty energy heavy. So,
right.
One interesting thing I would say, and we're focusing on top matchup, but it's impossible to talk about top matchup without bringing in a little bit of jungle matchup, I think.
Of course.
And I would say that something really interesting here is, you were right, that Akali kind of, especially around level 6, wants to try and get ahead on this Vlad. I would say Rek'Sai is a stronger early ganking and early pressure jungler than Skarner, but an interesting thing to me is that the top side and mid side of the map, it's hard for her to get off a gank onto either of these Team Liquid solo laners if they are playing safe. So, I don't know, it's hard to say, especially since, as I've talked about in the previous video, Skarner can be a pretty good counter ganker.
Yeah. Obviously, yeah, that's an interesting point to make about Rek'Sai's interactions with Team Liquid solo laners. There's always the point of, yes, Impact and Jensen will have some sort of escape tools available to them, but timing is very important. Not just timing and positioning. If there is either Vladimir or LeBlanc in the middle of the lane, it's likely that their escape abilities will be sufficient. If they are pushing, then it's less likely that they're going to be efficient when it comes to ganks, when it comes to collapses. I do want to point out Acadian's rune choice for this game, because we have seen in the other regions, we have seen some splashes of Hail of Blades, Rek'Sai. I am sure there's some Prezi attack Rek'Sais over there somewhere, but we do see the Conqueror. Now, Conqueror is obviously really strong, and when it comes to fights in the early levels, it's really impactful, and then obviously mid-late game, it becomes a real threat of damage onto the squishies of Team Liquid. Skarner, on the other hand, he just has this press a button and go fast. Right? So we kind of have to look at the early impact of these junglers and the impact that Xmithie can put over Rek'Sai in terms of effective ganks after level 6.
Well, and I'm excited to see, along with that, the fact that Jensen and CoreJJ have a lot of ability to help set up Skarner's ganks. And I like post 6, I would love to see some plays happening around some skirmishes, like in mid lane or bot lane around the dragon, if you can get some vision control and get a good skirmish off. I don't know.
Right. On to the mid lane matchup. Now, obviously, Zoe is Zoe.
Yeah.
And LeBlanc has a sort of difficult time doing things like she would want to do them in the mid lane without having to consider the Sleepy Trouble Bubble right when LeBlanc distorts on Zoe's face.
Yeah.
But we also have to look at how does that translate to the mid lane, the mid game fights. We have to consider that the Sleepy Trouble Bubble is a pick potential ability that is non-committal. Zoe doesn't have to put herself into a lot of trouble to use it effectively.
It's non-committal, and you also, if you decide to commit, you have a great combo in Rek'Sai and Galio to fully commit if you decide to, as well as Akali coming in.
But on the side of LeBlanc, to actually be effective, LeBlanc has to either jump on top of you or close by to do damage.
And that's the same with Skarner as well.
Right. So I think it's going to be really interesting. It's definitely going to come out to execution. But when it comes to punishing mistakes, I think TSM has a slight advantage, but they also get super punished if they make big macro or micro mistakes against this Team Liquid team.
Yeah.
Onto the bot lane matchup, there is obviously the discrepancy of summoners.
Yeah.
Between Ezreal and Kai'Sa. There is Teleport on Sven and the Cleanse on Doublelift.
And then the heal onto Braum, which you've talked about in the previous video, but
yeah.
Although it's not quite the same thing here because he has Spellbook rather than Guardian.
That is true, yeah.
Yeah. I think one interesting thing, so we talked about kind of if Team Liquid plays safe in their solo lanes, it's hard for Rek'Sai to get onto them. So it may be interesting to see if Rek'Sai focuses getting some pressure on this Team Liquid bot lane. We're trying vaguely to talk about them in a vacuum, but also considering that Doublelift and CoreJJ are a very important part of this Team Liquid team. And TSM has some pretty good ganks set up in the Galio. I would say the Cleanse hurts that, and the Cleanse I think was the correct choice against both Zoe and Galio. But it's interesting. One thing I would say is that the Ezreal being there means that there are some strange power spikes to worry about when you're going for a play, whether 2v2 or 3v2 with your Rek'Sai, because in some situations, Team Liquid might just have an item advantage or a combat item advantage. Right.
I want to bring up the point there on the idea that sometimes we refer to certain champions as ticking time bombs, right? Obviously, when we look at Ezreal, really strong spikes when it comes to items, but actually a really strong late game. But when we kind of look at on the rest of the TSM champions, we don't quite see that, aside from the fact of the the 100-0 Zoe plays, of some Akali assassinations, of some Rek'Sai skirmishes. Onto TL side, just the team fight damage potential that they have with this Vladimir, with the Kai'Sa, and the extra protection that they do get from Braum, I think that might be overwhelming at certain points in the game, depending on the game state, of course. But it's it's a ticking time bomb. It's bound to be there at some point.
One thing that's interesting about what you were saying about the comp there, I would say one thing that Ezreal does go well with is the idea, and this is true of Akali as well, where they are looking for, and Zoe could be true too, they are looking for kind of kitey, longer fights, which is interesting because Ezreal gets off a lot of poke, Akali can duck in and out, and Zoe can look for bubbles, so I don't know if they're necessarily worried about, in the late game, yes, Ezreal does a ton of damage, but that damage is spread out, and I kind of like how that fits with the Akali. I don't know.
Yeah. Also, I want to just briefly point out the differences in the nature of utility on both teams. So we kind of think of utility as just like enabling your teammates to do certain things, either amplifying their damage, mitigating the damage that they would take, or setting up CC. On the TSM side, there is CC on 4 of their champions. Now, obviously, Akali has to proc the first part of the ult to actually do the microstun. Sorry. We have the Rek'Sai knockup, the sleep, and knockup and or taunt from Galio. Now, most of them are combat utility spells. Whilst on the side of Team Liquid, Braum, such an amazing utility champion in that regard, because he does more than that. It's not just combat utility. There is also the shield to block skill shots, to block damage that would hit either LeBlanc or Kai'Sa, right?
Kai'Sa.
And I think that could be a big part of the dynamics of fights and skirmishes.
Well, and especially against the team comp they have, Braum is going to do work, hopefully, against both Ezreal and Zoe. And the best part is that I like the spellbook choice because late in a game, when it's vital that his team doesn't get picked, he can take the cleanse, and he can be ready to just take that Zoe bubble and be ready to absorb some stuff and start a fight, or absorb the start of a fight.
Yeah, and as we discussed, it also helps with the epic monster speed when you take Smite, obviously.
Yeah,
do you recognize some interactions of between these team compositions that we should talk about?
Well, what were you thinking? Did you have any?
I'm kind of thinking in regards to just fights that don't go full team fights.
Yeah.
I actually don't see a lot of options for either side to innovate or to sort of go creative. It's always, is Akali close to me? Yes, no. Is Vladimir close to me? Yes or no.
Did I dodge the Zoe bubble? Yes, no.
Yeah. It gets really binary in many cases.
Well, one thing I would disagree on that with is that Team Liquid does have the LeBlanc, which has a little bit more flexibility in what where she's gonna be. But yeah, overall, I agree with you. Continue.
Yeah. Now, it always depends on whether Zoe is ahead or not. When Zoe became a prominent pick in the meta, we used to say when drafting, if the composition and the game state allows Zoe to be aggressive, allows Zoe to be proactive in many ways, she is oppressive. But Zoe from behind is not as oppressive, and it actually is a handicap. Because she can do many things that she would want to do, and if she is on vision, she is not as threatening. on the side of Team Liquid, all of their champions, in one way or another, want to jump close to you.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, Vladimir wants to go in the middle of the fight. Skarner wants to pick someone. LeBlanc doing LeBlanc things, etc. I think that there is a world where both compositions try to overwhelm the enemy team, and then it just comes down to execution.
Yeah, and I think that I was thinking that early on in the mid game, a lot of those skirmishes are going to decide a lot of the game, because if Team Liquid gets a little bit ahead, then that means they're going to have better vision control, which limits Zoe, and the LeBlanc is going to have more freedom to do her thing and snowball the game, along with Skarner with Predator. And then, from TSM's side, if they get a little bit ahead on those skirmishes, then Zoe's going to be able to run the map, and Rek'Sai and Zoe are going to be able to get great vision control into Team Liquid's jungle and get catches for the team that Galio can then join. So it's really scary whoever falls behind.
Right, and not only fall behind in items and in pressure and in gold, but also fall back or fall behind in vision. I think vision is the name of the game for both of these teams when it comes to planning their how they're going to fight, how they're going to approach objectives, and how they're going to approach rotations. Because there is a lot of threat to whether it is a long lane that TSM or Team Liquid can collapse multiple members onto a single one, and there is Baron speed and Dragon speed for both teams. Granted, again, we have to come back and make the comment that Rek'Sai isn't a true tank. And it's definitely way riskier to bait, to try to rush epic monsters in this sense, because she isn't a true tank.
Well, and especially when you have a Vlad or a LeBlanc who can both just come in and just pop you, especially in the late game. It's scary.
Yeah. It's definitely going to be an interesting game. But I do want to put a lot of focus on vision control and how both teams prioritize their plays and their vision to match, right?
Yeah.
There are many times that teams lay down vision and protect vision, but then they decide to make a play that disregards that vision control that they just put down, right? So I think it comes down to that that part of strategic play that isn't really talked about a lot. But it's actually really important.
Well, and especially with these two mid laners, I think that Zoe and LeBlanc are both very scary from Dark Fog of War,
right?
And the comps in general as well. But I'm very curious as well to see how they play with vision. Shall we begin, or do you have anything else you want to mention?
Just the old saying of there is no scarier champion from Fog of War than Elise, and obviously Garen inside of a bush.
All right, let's get started.
Let's start.
Here we go.
I want to pay extra focus on the line of scrimmage, how it actually happened, because we are seeing more and more of certain teams sending the bottom lane to the red buff bush, and then having either the other one, in this case the AD carry, on the little brush in front of the Krugs. And this is a sort of defensive position. We see some dance moves.
Well, and we saw this in the G2 versus Origin game, where G2 had a very strong level 1, and they might have been worried. Origin might have been worried about it, and so they put them in that position. Same thing's happening here, where
with
Braum into Skarner stun, into all the damage that Team Liquid can provide. You don't want to give up an early invade in this game 5, especially.
Yeah, it's always the game 5 effect. You don't want to be the one
to give up that early edge
team behind. Yeah.
And now they're going the safe direction too, to lane.
Yeah. Although Team Liquid is in full vision, we do see that there is a mirror. Lanes that didn't leash for their junglers do get the
push advantage.
Not the push advantage, but the push priority.
Yes, exactly.
They can decide what to do.
Yes.
Now, Mid lane is just a little bit resident sleeper.
Well, it's not going to be at a certain point, though. A lot of this
Oh
game,
no, it's gonna become a banger.
a lot of this game depends on how mid lane goes, actually.
Right. So that's what we talk about. There is always the reciprocity of I stun you, and then I rid you, and the other one says no you.
Indeed. One interesting thing to me is to watch. Okay, so Skarner went straight from red to that bottom crab, and it looks like they'll just trade crabs, but Rek'Sai is going to walk onto a ward here. Oh, I see. He's going to clear it.
Yeah. Now, all lanes at this point are more or less aware of a jungler position.
Yes, and that's why they're looking for this.
Yeah. This is actually a little bit disrespectful in a sense, because of the lane position. If Jensen hadn't used that distortion, that could have been used to threaten Rek'Sai.
Yeah.
But it's nothing to write home about.
No, especially since
Just casual laning.
Acadian turns around and grabs the crab. Like, they couldn't contest that.
Right.
Nothing crazy happening so far. CoreJJ just showing his manliness.
Now, we obviously have to talk about how push is going to go on all three lanes. Yes, the top lane can be a wave clear match up to a point where it's just trading CS, trading a little bit of damage here and there, but it's nothing major really. Mid lane, we could say the same. There could be small fights or small damage trades, but nothing to speak of. We have to look at where the junglers are going to look to make their first gank and impact that lane. The balance of that.
Because, 1v1, besides that early exciting trade, I don't think that mid lane is going to go... Like, I don't think either of them are going to solo kill each other. I think that with junglers, it's a very volatile 2v2, though.
Yes, and those are always exciting. I thought in the later stages of last year and the early parts of this season, we kind of saw I would say the resurgence or the resurrection of solo kills. But with this particular draft, it's nigh impossible sometimes to see straight solo kills unless a huge mistake is
well, especially
made
since
by
both mid laners are very good. Like, both mid laners are on the top of their game in NALCS. So I don't think they're going to make mistakes in that way unless their junglers are around.
Right. And obviously these games are always interesting to watch from a shot caller perspective, seeing the expected behavior of lanes, how they act when you're just standing there, when you're on farming stands and trading stands, that suddenly they walk up to you and you have to ask yourself, is the jungler around here? Do we know for sure that the jungler is or isn't here? And those decisions are what actually turns trades around on whether a team is willing to respect or disrespect the proactiveness of walking forward.
Yeah.
So we should have a wave clear song to sing.
Rek'Sai grabs a crab advantage here, and he is she is a little bit ahead. It's Acadian, it's a he, but whatever. And now I think he's looking to get vision control, or at least, vision control into Skarner's bot side here.
Right. This is a point in the game where we start seeing the blue handoffs, and it's always interesting to see whether it's going to be their own blue buffs or if it's going to be an invade blue buff. This is looking like for TSM like they want to do an invade to the blue buff to deny LeBlanc from infinitely wave clearing mid lane. The same could be said.
I'm very curious about this take on the dragon, since their Ezreal just... Oh, he has TP, that's true.
Teleport 80 carries.
Oh, and Vlad just used his TP to get back to lane, so yeah, that's free for them, and it's an early Ocean. That's very good for TSM.
That's great for TSM. Now, yes, Ocean Drake in the early game feels great, but we have to look at the general state of the rest of the map, you know, the parts that weren't affected by the play of taking Ocean Drake right
there's
now.
TP advantage in top lane still for TSM, because
Right.
yeah.
Now there is a little bit of resource advantage in the mid lane as long as Bjergsen isn't in combat. Bot lane, we could say the same. There is really no clear way for them to get easily poked if they're playing it correctly. So this could be a really impactful Drake in the long run for the laning phase.
Well, especially since an Ocean Drake on Team Liquid, I think, would have been very good, because the Vlad would appreciate it.
Yeah. Extra sustain has never hurt anyone.
No. I'm interested, because it's really good for Sven that he got the double back. Oh, no.
Mistakes were made.
Yeah, and Acadian comes up to back him up. That's very good. One thing, so as I was saying before, we'll move on to talking about these implications. Sven got off the back where he got Tyr and Sheen, so he's not going to have a combat disadvantage in bot lane.
Yeah, not that much. We do have to point out that maybe there was some greed on Impact's side of not flashing, of not using the W properly.
Yeah.
But it's really bad because he had just used his teleport.
Yeah. And Akali still has a TP advantage. Yeah, that's huge.
Exactly. When it comes to CS advantages...
And now they get the blue buff too, just like they were hoping for.
I do not know when the TSM blue buff is going to spawn, but we could see a trade eventually.
Skarner backed, though. I don't think so.
Yeah.
We will see.
This is most interesting. Next Drake is a happy little clown.
I would say that I would honestly appreciate a Cloud Drake if I were Skarner, but I don't know if it's super important for anybody else.
Oof. Yeah, I mean, positioning in general is always really important. Being faster to plays, being faster to dodge skill shots. But yeah, it's not as clear cut as other Drakes.
Yeah.
Now we have to look for how the solo kill for First Blood in the top lane is really going to impact the general balance of the lane, on whether that's going to be Vladimir falling farther behind in the CS and experience department, or is just going to be some extra gold in Broken Blade's pockets.
I think part of what decides that is what Rek'Sai ends up doing with that advantage, because he now has a top laner who's winning, and so I don't know. I think that it's tough because Vlad's TP is about to come back up, so I don't know if they can take full advantage of it, but that is a lot of gold. That's a lot of gold on the Akali.
Yeah, and either Akali's or Vladimir's teleport isn't as impactful as other champions could be, right? Unless it's a deep flank or things like that. We have to look when a lane is wounded in this sense. There was a kill. There was minions were lost to the turret, or in this case, Skarner I think absorbed a few. We have to think on how resilient the champions are. If an early game champion is put far behind, that's obviously really bad, because that's the part of the game where you want to see that champion do things.
But with someone like Vlad?
Yeah, with sustain, with the safety of being resourceless, and an incredible mid-game and late-game, don't think it's really that bad.
Well, especially since Vlad is about to hit level 9, where from that point he pretty much... Like, there's no way he's getting solo killed again, is what I mean. Because level 9 is when Vlad is starts to get disgusting.
Right. We also have to point out that level 9 is also the threshold for Akali Q doing extra damage to minions, I believe. So that also means that there is the ability to push faster
So
for
right
Broken
here
Blade.
is what I was talking about how Rek'Sai is going to use this advantage. Because if they can get a dive off here effectively, and Rek'Sai can juggle aggro really well, then they could get a huge advantage. Team Liquid knew it was coming, though, and did an amazing job of responding. So that was very well played from Team Liquid.
That was an incredible read to the play. Because that was not only the expected behavior of TSM, but it was the best possible play that they could do.
Yeah. In a vacuum, getting the dive off on the Vlad and continuing to snowball your Akali, getting her that many plates, would have been massive.
Yeah, not just the dive, though. It's just zoning the Vladimir to actually take the turret, I guess, could have been the easier and safer play. But it ended up.
But it still would have, even if they didn't. I mean, they hadn't even committed yet. It was 2v3 because Team Liquid was just ready to go. Good job by Doublelift of making sure that he survived that little moment on his own. But the fact that, I mean, Galio could. One thing TSM could have done. Galio could have gone with them for that dive, and I honestly think that with an Ezreal on your team, it's probably a good idea to leave the Ezreal alone and have Galio support that really important play. Because if Galio is there, you might turn that.
Yeah, there's obviously the argument of if it was a 3v3, how would it look? Obviously, Ezreal is way safer than what Kai'Sa can bring to the table to defend herself. But still.
Well, the thing I'm thinking is that Akali was up almost 1,000 gold herself, just alone. And so that's why I'm thinking that 3v3 would have been a bit ugly for Team Liquid.
Right.
I don't know.
Now, even though the play got, red and it got countered, the damage had been done. And Herald, Shelly had the opportunity to actually charge turret with no interruption, so the advantage is still there.
Broken Blade is massive now. He's up probably at least 1,500 gold as a champion, and that's pretty terrifying. And on Akali especially.
Yeah, the problem is that we have to actually look at the champion. Like, what champion is holding the lead? And, well, yes, Akali is really happy that she is ahead in this matchup. Is she happy with being ahead holistically when it comes to the game? Because she's going to be diving onto the immediate CC of Skarner ult. Yeah. She's going to be diving to the protection of Braum. Is that enough?
Well, another issue, I think, is that splitting against Vlad, I don't know if she can do a lot late game if you're up against the Vlad in the side lane, and I don't really see anyone else on TSM that even wants to be near a side lane. So that's disturbing to me because the Fed Akali wants to be in the skirmishes, but it means that TSM is kind of stuck as 5.
Yeah. Also on that point, when it comes to just the identity of the champions working in that way, TL knows this. TL must know that this is the case, and how they approach it when it comes to vision control, when it comes to lane assignments, is going to be really important.
Yeah, because I think Team Liquid has more flexibility on their lane assignments than TSM does, and that can be huge.
Now, I really want to see now how the lane assignment evolves from this point on. Because next Drake is going to be Ocean. TSM has 2. When you're at this point in the game, it doesn't matter what Drake it is. You always have to think of the Elder Drake win condition. And you don't want to give the enemy team too many elemental Drakes that suddenly you are pushed into trading either Baron for Elder or vice versa, just because of how many elemental Drakes the enemy team has, and you don't want to give them that huge buff, right?
Especially since the Elder Drake is terrible on you comparatively if you have no Drakes. And so, yeah, I mean, you are trapped into forcing plays, like forcing yourself to make concessions to grab the Elder when you don't really care about it. It's just the other team gets it, they win.
Yeah, and it gets really hard to contest barons in that sense, because the enemy team is just going to be like, okay,
we'll take the 5-stack Elder instead.
Yeah. Now, it was actually really interesting how Bjergsen read that TL stack on the chickens, the chickens bush. Good thing that Doublelift was there to tank it first and get away with the cleanse, but there, even for us to analyze this, must have been the same for them playing this. Like, what exactly what do you do at this point in the game? It's just a matter of how creative can you get.
Well, I think
the other team.
Some of the idea behind that play was that what you do right now is set up vision control for this ocean. And so if they expect TSM to come through and try and get vision control around the Drake, maybe they think, hey, if we're standing there as 4 people, then good luck trying to get vision without dying. So maybe that was their plan. Because that is kind of the one thing that's being done right now, is kind of prepping vaguely for this Drake.
Now, it's actually really interesting. Neither team is really looking for, at the moment, is looking to engage a team fight full like on a single front. You want to have multiple threats from multiple sides. But then, is being scattered a weakness for either team as well?
Well, I think one interesting thing is that if they get scattered, then I think both teams have ways to take advantage of that. Because Akali can take advantage of a scattered person, especially with Galio backup. And then Skarner and LeBlanc would love to find someone sitting alone. So one interesting thing to me, and I talked a little bit about this, is that TSM moved their Akali down to left the TP up and walked her to the fight, and I said that Akali wants to be involved in these skirmishes because she has all their gold. She has their gold lead, or, you know, she and Zoe have the gold lead, and so, especially with the plating. And that means Team Liquid has to bring their Vlad down, and Vlad is pretty behind on items right now, I think, although a lot of TSM had to pay the Skarner tax.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. So I don't know who actually is ahead on effective gold for this fight, because TSM is ahead, but all of that gold that is that they are ahead is in Rek'Sai and Akali's QSS.
Now, the Skarner tax, and it's really important that you bring up that point, the Skarner tax most of the time is a preventive measure rather than a corrective measure. This is telling Skarner, don't ult me, because I have the Quicksilver Sash to get away, and you're just going to waste your cooldown. That's actually putting extra threat on the members that do not have the Quicksilver Sash.
True.
They become targets. I do want to point out that though Vladimir is behind, obviously, because of all the factors that you mentioned, there is one item missing from this Vladimir build that I would like to see, and that is obviously the stopwatch. For teamfight effectiveness, to just buy time for repositioning, for Braum to protect Vladimir after the stasis, either the built-in stasis or untargetability, or the stopwatch.
Well, and that's where I think the him being behind on gold comes into play, because he had to make a decision. I'm done one item, but I don't, you know, what do I buy for the next fight? I'm behind. Should I buy enough to make my champion useful, or should I buy the utility of the stopwatch? And I would agree with you that I think stopwatch would have been better. But if he plays the fight more safely, and the stopwatch isn't necessary, then clearly what he went with is going to turn out better. So it's hard to say. It's an interesting decision.
Yeah. Now, this dragon fight looks like it's going to be sloppy.
Yes.
If it ever occurs.
Ooh, nice block by CoreJJ.
Yeah.
Oh, man. I don't like how split Team Liquid is.
No, and of course there is the TSM stack, but they are not in any way, shape, or form a Death Bowl composition.
No. Akali's looking to flank, which is why she's pushing that wave out.
Now, I do not think that potentially risking a fight for this Drake is a particularly smart decision.
I
But
don't think Team Liquid needed to start that Drake there.
no, I think the obvious choice for both teams is to look to adjacent lanes to push, whilst the other team is
And that's where
focused on the
TSM
Drake.
has gotten their advantage here. They
Yeah.
pushed in enough. Oh,
But
she doesn't have Shroud. She.
Damn.
Oh no. Oh.
I think she just got away.
Yeah. Wow. That was intense. Okay.
Will TL turn for the Drake now? They've got
expect they
pressure,
will.
yes.
But they don't have vision control over the pit.
Oh my god,
Another
Core
block by
JJ.
JJ.
This is
Let's
most
see
unusual.
what LeBlanc does to try and stop this. Okay, so LeBlanc distracted the Rek'Sai enough that he couldn't get in for the Drake steal, but this is scary for Team Liquid now. Okay, a good disengage from Braum. Really well played there from Braum to get his team out.
Interestingly enough, after the changes, it is more difficult to dodge the Rek'Sai ult damage.
Yes.
I think it's 1,000 units that you have to move so that it doesn't hit you. And I think that was just what Jensen did there. With blinking to the W platform that appears. So that prevented Jensen from dying to Rek'Sai. But again, small prices paid for this play. I really don't think that it should have been this forced. It was not a 50-50 in the end, but
this was sloppy
still.
from both teams, but especially I think from Team Liquid. I don't know.
Yeah, particularly because Vladimir just got blown up.
Yeah.
And trying to get to the river.
Impact is having a tough time, and
Yeah.
and I think TSM is doing a good job of trying to force that.
But I do not want to sound like a broken record, but how impactful is that in the general scheme of things?
True, because Vlad is still scaling.
Yeah. He is far behind, but not that
And he
far
can clear
behind.
waves pretty effectively now, so he's just going to be able to push the Akali away whenever he wants, and that's the ticking time bomb you talked about.
Yeah. Obviously, some teams like to play on the principle of shadowing the laners that are vulnerable, right?
Yeah.
But right now, we see Skarner in vision in the mid lane, and I just don't think that was warrant enough for Broken Blade to go in and fight. Because if Skarner is clearing mid lane, where is LeBlanc?
Fair. Probably somewhere near you.
In a brush near you.
Everywhere.
Now we do see LeBlanc pathing back to the mid lane, where it's just wave clear wars between Zoe and LeBlanc. Actually, what I would like to see here is the institution of a 1-3-1. Even though it's an early stage in the game, a 1-3-1 would be beneficial in many ways for both teams, of having both Ezreal and I forget his name, Ezreal and Galio, as well as Kai'Sa and Braum in the mid lane.
Yeah.
With the junglers tending to the side that they wish to farm or they wish to protect. And Zoe and LeBlanc closest to the next objective, which is in this case would be Baron.
And then the teleport users in the bottom lane.
Away. But that teleport to fight, the teleport directly to the Dragon Pit to fight an Ocean Drake, means that Akali is not able to do that.
Yeah, it's the TP disadvantage. Also, I don't love, like, Akali TPing in is scary, but so is the Vlad TPing in. I don't know. I think it's interesting. Zoe in a side lane is not, I think, as scary as LeBlanc in a side lane either, so it's interesting to see. I think Team Liquid has a stronger 1-3-1 is what I mean.
Yeah.
As a comp.
Yeah, and speaking of how scary Akali is with her teleport, you also have to think of the immediate impact that both top laners have when they TP.
Vlad does something when he gets into the into the
yeah,
fight.
they both immediately go in trying to kill. It's not a utility teleport.
No,
like the old days of Maokai's teleporting in and flash rooting someone, and that's how you start
coming
a team
in,
fight.
and I don't know, Sion ulting in from the side.
No, this is just a call for help. I am engaging, but I need backup.
Yeah, it's
because,
like, hey, I'm here with damage.
Yeah, not a lot of utility, just a little bit of damage.
But that's not their job in the comp. I think that, especially for Team Liquid, Braum is there for that. Braum and Skarner are there for that.
Yeah, definitely.
They just have so much good disengage with the Braum, and just all their movement and everything.
And mobility, yeah. Will this force Vladimir to teleport?
No, it looks like they're giving it. They're going to get mid-prio off of it, though.
Yeah. Now, as annoying as Zoe is, she has to do, or she has to follow a lot of steps to clear waves consistently.
Yeah.
It's kind of like when we think of Jay's wave clearing, like there has to be angles involved. Now, both teams get side lane turrets for that play, which, in essence, that always favors the scaling comp.
Yeah.
Right? Because it is not an advantage that the enemy team just got for free, it's just stalling.
Yeah.
But the Infernal Drake is important.
Yeah, especially for Zoe and Ezreal, but Zoe especially. For Zoe, that's scary for her to have that.
Yeah, the extra non-interactive damage that you can put out.
Yeah.
But we shall see.
But the thing is, that only is true if Korg JJ doesn't block every goddamn spell, because he's been on point. Like, when they were taking the mid tower, or putting damage down in the mid tower, he did a great job of defending his sleepy LeBlanc.
Yeah. Yeah, he has got his. If he takes the Sleepy Trouble Bubble, he can just activate the shield preemptively to block the incoming damage. Obviously, if it's a teammate, that's even easier because he is not under threat.
Yeah.
And just in case there is a bigger fight that he needs to attend immediately, there is the cleanse. Now,
where was Team Liquid there?
Yeah.
It took them forever to get back mid lane.
This rush for a mid lane turret really seems odd, but considering that LeBlanc was just pushing a side lane with no real intent.
TSM just had 4 people, so.
Yeah. Numbers advantage.
Oh,
ouch.
But we've got a very split fight here.
Yeah, this Vladimir might go down.
Yeah. Jensen as well.
Or not. That was
Jensen's
really
dead.
good.
Yeah. TSM did an amazing job of just immediately turning there onto the lower side fight.
Yeah, instead of trying to chase Vladimir, which was the member that got lower, they just went for the easy one that was trying to.
Well, and even before that, they were pretty split off into 2 separate theaters of war, and they decided, hey, the lower one, we have a numbers advantage if we just immediately sprint down there, and they turned onto it. Like here, they were focused mid lane, but then immediately realized, oh, we can make a difference here.
Yeah. Now, again, I have to wonder, is this enough for to countenance the scaling composition that TL has in the long run?
Well, it's certainly good.
Yeah. Taking this extra gold advantage is good, 100%. But
they didn't even get mid-tower off of it.
And pressure-wise, exactly, it wasn't that relevant. because, yeah, Jensen died, but he bought a lot of time.
Admittedly, I do think it is important in that it gives them a tempo lead to get... They were able to back, and now they're able to come out and maintain vision control over the second Infernal that's about to come up. And that is, I think, the advantage they can take from it.
Coming to the goal difference between these teams, which is 3.6 at the moment, I believe.
Looking at the comps, I don't think that's a huge deal.
No, it isn't. But we have to look at certain items that are particularly impactful in fights. Because items in general will give you stats, but then the effects that they do give you are actually important and cannot be easily measured. When it comes to the steroid tankiness that Skarner can get with the Stone Plate, the infinite healing, potential infinite healing that Malmortius can give Kai'Sa when it procs and if she's still fighting, cannot be measured. The value of it depends on the circumstances of the fight, and we have to see if they do take advantage of that, how impactful it is to counteract the 3 and something K gold lead against them.
But again, to talk about, and we don't have the items pulled up right now, but there are currently 3 members on TSM who have QSS, and that's exactly pretty much the gold lead. So
yeah, it is a QSS lead.
It's a QSS lead, which is super important against the Skarner. Don't get me wrong, that's an important lead to have. But in just combat stats, they're even right now.
Right, and we shall see if those stats make a difference. That was a lot of AoE damage suddenly on the
and the Galio gets a great ult off. That's very good for TSM.
Yeah, this looks like a through and through, like a great fight for TSM.
Oh, well done, Jensen, though, getting one back, but that's an ace. That's huge. And now it's a second Infernal for the Zoe.
That's just...
I'm scared. Yeah, I'm scared for let's see, Kai'Sa, for LeBlanc.
Yeah. And we have to think of kiting as well. How easy it is for your team to kite. When we look at Broken Blade, obviously Akali with the Shroud, with the excess of mobility that's on her kit, she can do that pretty well. Rek'Sai disappears from the map when she ults, right? So, and she has mobility, so there's that. Zoe with the extra mobility she gets from casting stolen summoners or active items, that's also great. And Ezreal is Ezreal with his E, right? But in the case of Team Liquid, it sort of seems like it's go forward or don't go anywhere.
Yeah.
For them to actually be effective. And it has to do with whether they get positional advantages or numbers advantages before fights. Otherwise, they are stuck going in.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I agree. One interesting thing to note I just noticed, we could very comfortably say now that TSM's lead is a lot more than a QSS lead now. 6,000 gold is a lot more than 3,000 gold. If you haven't if you're up on your math, you would know that.
But also a math lesson is percentages. And percentages, 2 Infernal Drakes are doing hella good to TSM right now, and they're definitely scary when it comes to their damage dealers.
Also, one really interesting thing to say there is that because the Infernal was taken after the fight rather than before, the timer had run out, and we went over to where the next Drake will be Elder. And so that's very bad for Team Liquid, I think, because if that Infernal had been taken a half second earlier, then they could stall out the game even further. But right now, as is, they're going to have to worry about this Elder, this 4-stack Elder being up on the map.
Yeah, and really strong, really strong, considering the play patterns of Zoe and Ezreal, that they can just poke from a distance and proc that 4-stack Elder onto the Team Liquid members. But that also puts them at a great risk of actually getting engaged when they're trying to poke.
Mm-hmm. True.
we have to recognize there's always a difference. It's just like in the laning phase, you have stances. when you're looking to farm, when you're looking to trade, that also applies in a different manner, but it applies to team fighting and rotations. What are you looking to do? Silly mistake there from Jensen, but it's okay. LeBlanc can always wait. We have to think not only on exactly where they are, the members on either side, but what they're looking to do. Whether they're looking to start up a skirmish, start up a fight, or just getting vision.
Yeah.
So the intent behind their positioning is what defines the possibilities and defines what they actually will be able to accomplish.
Well, and one really thing that goes hand in hand, a really good thing that goes hand in hand for that, the one positive right now for Team Liquid is that none of the TSM Drakes they've gotten are mountains. And so the stance that TSM can take is not as Oh no, that was bad.
Speaking of stances,
well, so what I was saying was TSM could threaten Baron, but it's not as scary without the mountain, and so Team Liquid doesn't need to play as scared. Because if TSM had a couple of Mountain Drakes and they're standing anywhere near that goddamn Baron with vision control, Team Liquid needs to really react. Whereas now, Team Liquid has a little more freedom of movement and can be in different places, like right there, getting a catch onto Ezreal.
Right. That was an absolutely horrible mistake by Sven. It was a mix of why are you there and the disrespect of summoner usage and mobility usage in general and the scimitar usage.
Well, yeah.
But I have to say I completely agree. Objective taking speed is definitely important at this stage of the game. Otherwise, you're just banking on if we fight, we're going to do extra damage. Right? I don't think, in a vacuum, that this was just a Sven mistake, because this is coordinated team play. And in coordinated team play, you're not only responsible for what you do, you're responsible for what your teammates do, what they do, and how they do it. When everyone is in their downtime, right, they have the ability to look elsewhere on the map. And obviously, pro players are known for using the F keys to sort of get a perspective of their teammates. This was a lapse of judgment of the whole of TSM.
Well, I also want to highlight the positions and their implications of every TSM member, because right now they are doing a lot of... So Zoe is backing to make sure she's ready for this Baron fight or Elder fight. Rek'Sai is clearing out. Everyone's kind of resetting, and this is the moment where Team Liquid can come in and clear off the vision off of the Baron and make sure they get a little control back while TSM is setting up. And so Sven and the Galio and like everyone right now needs to know we can't step anywhere near the Baron pit until we are ready to take it back over as a group immediately. Which is, I think, the lapse here that Sven thought we have vision control over Baron area. I'm safe here, but that's not a good plan against a Predator Skarner and a LeBlanc.
Right, you can only get rid of one CC.
Yeah,
you can only make so much distance with your flash, with your E, and that was definitely just a lapse of judgment.
Well, and what is the plan here? Because you are not faster than the Predator Skarner. So I understand the mispositioning and feeling safe in a situation with Ezreal, but then we get to here. I guess he has flash and E, but their team has way too much CC to be standing anywhere near this pit right now, and he's walking up for auto attacks. Skarner can honestly, especially since Skarner has flash, I think Skarner, if Ezreal immediately E-flashed away and Skarner pops his Predator like right now, Skarner can run and catch him.
That's a possibility.
I don't know. I mean,
but that was just disrespect and as we said, a lapse of judgment.
Yeah.
Now, TSM at this point is bottlenecked. What do? do we go onto the to fight the Baron on a numbers disadvantage, or do we just shrug it off and try to come back later?
It's not just a 4v5 numbers disadvantage, because there's a TP advantage like we just saw on Team Liquid's side. And so it's a 5v3. And Akali was low off of that fight, so it's very hard for her to make a play here.
Yeah. Now they are just banking on whether we steal or not.
Oh, I mean, you're trying to steal from Xmithie, though, and that's hard to do. Xmithie is the king of clutch smites.
The clutch secures,
no one else in NA history has made more clutch smites than Xmithie, and it's not even close. So that's hard to do.
reminds me if we can just go back in time to 2015 El Bandito in the former EULCS, Frederick on SK Gaming, the king of Baron steals, but that's unsurprisingly, he's not here with us.
Oh, you know what just happened?
Couldn't get it.
Sorry, I'll let you continue. Just want to point out here that Acadian tried to combo his smite with Bjergsen's Q, and Team Liquid did an amazing job of where they were standing, making sure the Q exploded before it got to the Baron. Watch
so there was no rush.
The Q kills CoreJJ, but it doesn't spread AoE-wise to the Baron.
Right. That hurts. That definitely hurts. Now TSM is on the back foot.
Yeah.
Now, even here, you have to wonder that there is still not a sizable, but there's still a gold lead. There's still a dragon lead. So this should be manageable. But it all now depends on getting the perfect
Well, what I would say,
fight.
though, is let's look at some items, because Team Liquid scaling comp is online, if you look at items. And it's very scary now. LeBlanc is just barely off of her probably strongest ability, but she's not the one. She doesn't have her death cap yet, but she's not the one who needs to be scaling. It's the Kai'Sa and the Vlad, and they are on spikes. So
yes,
scary stuff.
Now, obviously, as you mentioned, this Elder Drake is a denial from TSM. It's not like Team Liquid wants it for itself. It just doesn't want it on TSM.
Which is why they will never go for a 50-50 on it. Because they don't need it that much. They just need to make sure TSM doesn't go near it.
And now, something I mentioned on the previous VOD review, and it's something that applies here. Mid lane right now is really long. So the time that TSM would take from traversing from the river to an objective in the mid lane is really long. Whilst TL can just go down to the bot lane, take the bot lane, or threaten the bot lane tier 2, and that's absolutely fine. That's in the realm of their capabilities right now.
But Roland, they got a Cloud Drake.
Indeed they do. Those were some great...
that was a little... This is a sloppy situation.
Yes, it is. I do want to give a shout out to Xmithie. Those were some great dance moves there. Oh my lord, it's getting sloppy.
What in the world is going on right now?
That was another CoreJJ catch on the Ezreal ult, wasn't it?
Yep. And no one's dead. And now... But your LeBlanc's not there. Oh my gosh, what is happening? I don't think Team Liquid should be forcing this.
No, it looks less than forcing the Elder and than forcing...
TSM to respond.
TSM, yeah. Forcing a TSM mistake here, which is likely to be the case if TL
we can get a good engage here.
Engage.
I do think one issue, CoreJJ did use his ult in a bad situation earlier, and so now CoreJJ does not have the ult for this fight. So it's interesting to see what happens. It is halfway up already, though.
Are missing, but not for long.
No, Vlad ult is coming up now.
Yeah, bot lane is being cleared by Kai'Sa, so that's a threat onto TSM right now, but that does give them leeway to just
It's
focus
a
the other
4v5,
Drake.
yeah, or a 5v4 currently. But she can get back into a fight pretty quickly with her ult.
Yes, the fight is starting.
And there he
Focus the
is.
support.
There's Kai'Sa. Can we get Broken Blade down? Because if Broken Blade dies here, I don't think... Yeah, I think Team Liquid can just run over them now. Oh,
Yeah.
never mind. I guess not. I was wrong. Oh,
What are you doing,
Sven? Went
Sven?
full. Oh, no. So, yeah, I think they need to kite back.
Yeah, he was just isolated
Yeah.
away from his team with no apparent reason whatsoever. That's greed. Now it seems
Well, I
that
think they were all low, and he must have tunneled onto a couple of low Team Liquid members. But you have to. It's really important. It's a really important fight there.
right.
They had to back off.
TSM could have just used their apparent health advantage there.
Yeah.
Send the Ezreal back to base, buy some items, because this has been going on for quite a bit of time now. Reset and look for a play.
Well, and I think the key at the end of this fight is that TSM is down numbers, but they're up health, and so the big point here is that TSM want this Drake, but they can't immediately take it. What they need to do is just make sure that Team Liquid can't come back and take it, and just make sure everything resets until they have their numbers back. Because they're not winning a fight right now, because Team Liquid has a numbers advantage, but they aren't losing the fight. So don't look for crazy engages, look for kiting away.
Right. We have to mention though that when you were paused there, when we were just watching that
Sorry.
still. No, it's fine. A bigger number of TL members were actually engaged in the fight, meaning that they were doing damage, that they were taking damage, doing stuff in the fight.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we can see Bjergsen and Sven that they are in a really awkward position, that they are not damaging anyone in particular. So there is no focus to this fight. It's really
It's a
scattered.
little split, yeah.
Yeah, it's really split. And they are possibly threatening the tank jungler and the tank support who are trying to collapse onto Broken Blade, whilst Doublelift is escaping for his life. So this was not just bad when it comes to choosing how to move and how to sort of react to the position of the team fight. This was just both Broken Blade and later on Sven just isolating themselves from this rest of the team, not allowing them to do damage, not allowing them to be useful in the fight.
Well, and they both, we talked about, are looking to kite out fights, and right now they're, in both situations, they were letting themselves get fully engaged on, and I think that's where things went awry.
Yeah, definitely. So we can just keep watching the replay.
I'm curious if they'll show the
this
entire
is
thing.
bad.
So right here, here's where I'm talking about, where TSM does not need to try and finish this Drake, although Team Liquid doesn't have their jungler, so maybe they could. But mostly they just need to kite away back topside of the Drake pit, and make sure that everyone just gets out. Because maybe they keep aggro of the Drake as they kite away in case Team Liquid runs. But if Team Liquid's still around, they're still able to, with Zoe and with Ezreal, just outpoke the low Team Liquid members, and you just play it really slow and really safe.
Right. I do want to see the following 2 to 3 seconds, because you can clearly see that both Bjergsen and Acadian are running away from the remaining Team Liquid members and then decide to go onto the Drake.
Yeah, but they're doing exactly what I was talking about.
Yeah,
where they're kiting
but
up
then just
towards
goes
the top.
forward.
Mm-hmm.
This was just a shot
Miscommunication.
calling.
It was a miscommunication of
it's
some sort.
Miscommunication, but also when one has been in the team environment, there are times that the shot caller is drowned out by noise, or that the shot caller is clear that this is what we're gonna do, and someone, I wouldn't say disobeys, but disregards the call.
Yeah.
And there's always the saying that it's better that the entire team follows a single bad call and tries to make the best out of it than multiple members following what they think is a good call.
And that's clearly what's happening here.
These sorts of situations, yeah. And that's just unfortunate, but it is a mistake.
Because I actually think because Doublelift is backing, I think if Sven shifts away there instead of not even shifts, just walks.
Walks.
I think that TSM, honestly, looking at the situation right now, just gets this Drake.
Yeah, and they would be poised to just
they have 4-stack Elder. If they get this Drake, which, looking at it now, if Sven survives here and kites back up and damages this Dragon, I don't see how anyone but TSM gets this Drake right now. I think TSM just wins this game right at this, like, half a second earlier than this was when the game was decided.
Yeah, lots of people will point out to the Sven overstay or overextend at the Baron pit. Yes, that was impactful.
I think this one,
of the game.
Having seen both now,
is more important.
This one's way more important to the state of the game. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
100%. We can just roll it, and that's just...
Yeah, now they have to run from the Drake.
Extremely unfortunate for them. You can see Six just...
Not happy.
He's not having it. Granted, this Drake doesn't do a lot. It's because TL did take it. It's not doing a lot for them.
But it gives them the fight pressure for this Baron, which is important.
Yes.
And the most important thing is TSM does not have it.
Yeah. They do not have it, and even if it's a small buff, you have it.
Well, and Team Liquid now is ahead on gold, which is a huge change.
Yeah. The later the game goes, really, it doesn't quite matter as much.
No.
But yeah. Pressure-wise, we have to look at the turrets. Top lane is equal. Bot lane is longer for TSM, because they have taken
very
bot lane
barely,
tier 2.
Yes.
But and that's also the same thing for the mid lane, where they are right now.
Yeah.
Obviously, before every Dragon and Baron, teams will look to get mid pressure. Now we see an engage.
Don't think anyone's going to die here.
No, that was really interesting. For those of you wondering,
what the hell? That was gorgeous!
Not gonna happen. Not on his watch.
I love good support play. Oh my god.
For anyone wondering why TL is adamant to go on to Smoothie, yes, he is a tank support, but he is not a farmed tank. So he's not as tanky as
Look
you might
at
think.
that. Look at he just got bursted.
Yeah, he
like
just
you were
pops.
saying. Oh no.
So
I'm a little worried about Broken Blade in the back there, but
it's just a scattered fight everywhere.
Well, and scattered isn't bad for TSM. It's just they're playing it. They're getting split off in the wrong ways.
Yeah.
They want to scatter Team Liquid. They don't want to exclusively be scattered themselves.
And now, I know a lot of people will obviously put the blame on a lot of players, or on Sven. We'll put blame somewhere. We have to take into account that we cannot call it tilt, but it's the mental factor in Core JJ.
Core JJ, god damn it. Okay.
The mental factor of we were winning, but then this happened and this happened and this that's a lot of pressure on the players, and that makes you as a player and potentially shot caller just start to lose trust on what's going on in the game. And when that happens, individual plays instead of team plays take precedent or are put forward, and individual plays lead to scatter fights, and that's exactly what's going on with TSM.
That fight was all tilt. That play right there was a lot of tilt.
It's just, okay, I will try to salvage this. I will try to make good of this.
Oh, I can make this
possible.
play, and then they solo.
Yeah, and Hail Marys have a place in this game, but it shouldn't be there.
Yeah,
it shouldn't be in those situations where you definitely had different ways forward. So now it comes a matter of, was the team aware of these situation? If so, why didn't you follow? And if not, what is wrong with your shot calling? Right? So in that regard, yes, it is a tiered mistake.
Yeah. Well,
Now
and now
just-
we're seeing the power of, like I was talking about, Team Liquid has a much better 1-3-1 as a
Yeah.
team. And especially when they're ahead now like this, and with a scaling comp, it's hard to respond to it. They're just getting all 3 towers at the exact same time.
Yeah. As I was saying at the beginning of the video, Zoe from ahead, really annoying, oppressive, overwhelming. We could throw a myriad of adjectives onto how strong she is, but from behind, it's a really lackluster champion.
Yeah.
Now, this is just the last
It's
straw
desperation
possible.
from TSM. This is not a pretty fight, and I don't think they could have had a pretty fight.
No.
But it's too late at this point. This is not the moment to talk about in this game.
Mid lane, TSM mid lane and TSM bot laner were just standing there being zoned out.
Yeah, there was
whilst-
nothing they could do there.
Whilst the TSM divers were just in the middle of everyone, dying.
Well, that was a fascinating game to watch, to see how it turned around, and the little moments that make all the difference, little decisions. Because TSM wins that fight off of a couple of different little decisions, macro-wise or micro-wise, would have changed the entire outcome.
Yeah. There are a lot of analysts that would like to talk about percentage plays. It's actually horrible for TSM that the plays that they went for were really that cost them the game were low percentage plays, were unnecessary overextensions, unnecessary actions, rather than okay, well, they tried really hard, but they couldn't make it happen. The execution maybe was there, but the draft or the circumstances weren't there for them. No, these were unprompted mistakes that led to this outcome, and it's definitely interesting. Mistakes by themselves aren't important.
Yeah.
It's punished mistakes, and TL was there to punish.
Indeed.
So
Indeed they were.
we have to credit them for that.
Yeah, I think Team Liquid played to their win conditions quite well this game. In that,
To their strengths.
they were not afraid of waiting until their spikes to take fights, and then playing around their spikes well.
Full credit, really, to Broken Blade for how he played this series, and Acadian how he played his series, considering first playoffs appearance.
Yeah.
But that's where the veteran, the pedigree comes in, on these clutch moments, on these clutch micro decisions and micro actions that really do change the outcome of games.
And that's where a world champion like Core JJ can maintain consistent play throughout this entire long game. I mean, I don't think I saw a single misstep from Core JJ, besides a single misused Braum ult during one of the fights. Literally, I can't think of another even small misstep from him. What a beautifully played game.
It was an amazing play. I think maybe there is not a tally on Braum's blocking skill shots, but in my heart, this takes the world record of literally denying an ability for the entirety of the game.
Yeah.
Maybe just one or two Ezreal ults that hit champions or minions.
It didn't matter from how far away. It didn't matter what else was distracting him. It didn't matter if they were in the middle of taking Baron or in the middle of something else. He just would put it up and step in front of whoever else, and was just ready even when his team wasn't going to be able to react in time.
Definitely. That was just a no full stop. Not even a no you. It was just no. Don't even.
Yeah.
What an amazing game.
Oh,
but unfortunately, for analysis' sake, it was a rather slow one.
I don't know.
Unfortunately,
I think we had
it was
plenty to
kind
talk
of
about.
yeah, it was kind of standard compositions.
Yeah. Well, I
Instead
mean,
of,
if you
like,
want to
creative
see
ones?
us analyzing unusual compositions, go back and watch the other 3 videos, especially the LEC finals game where we analyze the strangest compositions I have ever seen.
Yes, indeed.
And a lot of the fun a lot of the reasons behind them and how they execute those comps. Yeah, this one was definitely more standard, but it let us talk a lot more about macro decision making from a standard perspective, and I like that.
Right. Yeah, I agree. And now on to MSI.
Yeah, I'm excited. I hope people enjoy these. But hopefully, yeah, we'll be back and we'll be doing a bunch more for MSI. I'm excited to try that. But let us know in the comments if you like this. But yeah,
Definitely send us your feedback if you have.
Yeah.
We'd appreciate it.
I had a lot of fun doing this, though. And yeah, thank you, Rollwin, for joining me for all of these.
It's a pleasure.
Well, I hope everyone enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one.